Hello and welcome to Straight Talk with PAP. I'm Yvonne Chan. Now, small and medium enterprises are the engines of growth for our economy, but COVID-19 poses serious challenges to them now. Job support are buffering businesses from the full impact of the crisis, but what's next? And how do SMEs cope with manpower challenges and a drop in business? And beyond COVID, how do SMEs prepare for a digital future? Well, tackling these hard questions today are Senior Minister of State Chee Hong Tat, Zaqy Mohamad, and PAP's new candidate, Chia. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now, before we start, let's take a look at a video taken off Mr. Chee's Facebook page.
We must have the aptitude and attitude to serve global markets. Our people must have the entrepreneurial spirit to venture abroad, to compete and seize the opportunities of a fast-growing Asia. We cannot be content with doing well just within Singapore.
Of internationalization, we managed to touch base with Enterprise Singapore's Overseas Centre. So through the Overseas Centre, I think we have a lot of good information from them about the local market. I think one of the most exciting development for the organisation was to be part of the Scale Up programme.
For the business aspect, actually we have a lot of licenses that we have to get before we can commercialize. Yeah? And throughout the whole process, we also have the help of Enterprise Singapore, as well as the Pro-Enterprise division in Ministry of Trade and Industry, helping us to expedite the whole process so that we can commercialize quicker.
Continue to help our businesses and our workers to build stronger capabilities so that our economy and our supply chains can adapt well and emerge stronger in the new normal.
And yes, we have to continue helping our SMEs because they are a vital part of our economy. They hire about 2 million Singaporeans and play a really important role in providing essential services and new business opportunities for young entrepreneurs. But they have been some of the hardest hit due to COVID-19. Hong Tat, to get you to kick off this session for us, perhaps you could highlight some of the most pressing challenges facing SMEs today.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. You know, when I was asked to present what we are doing to support SMEs, I thought of inviting two of my friends. One is MOS Zaqy and Mr. Chia. So, as you know, Zaqy is currently in the Ministry of Manpower and Ministry of National Development. He was formerly from the private sector, so he has got many dealings with employers, with workers, and the two of us are also advisors to the Singapore Business Federation SME Committee, so we deal a lot with SMEs too. Edward, of course, is an entrepreneur, SME owner, so I think both of them are well placed to touch on what are some of the issues facing SMEs, what are some of the support schemes that we are giving to SMEs. As you correctly pointed out, Yvonne, SMEs play a very important role in our economy. They contribute about 50%, 50, of our overall economy, of our GDP, and also hire about 2/3 of our workforce. And importantly, SMEs also provide services, essential services, to many of our larger companies, to Singaporeans, both in our heartlands, and also, I think, to look for opportunities to allow young people to start businesses, like what Edward did, started his own company. So I think these are all very important areas where allow our young people to have the opportunities to realize their dreams, and also allow our economy to provide good jobs for our people. So, when Minister Chan Chun Sing and I came to MTI about 2 years ago, we felt that SMEs, in particular growing local champions amongst our SMEs, would be important. How do you build stronger capabilities? How do you allow more Singapore companies to do well, not just in Singapore, but help them to go overseas, to tap on the growth opportunities in the region? And we used to have 2 agencies looking after SMEs. One is IE Singapore, one is Spring Singapore. We decided to merge the 2 of them into Enterprise Singapore so that there's more synergy and a dedicated focus, see what we can do to help SMEs, not just to do well here, but also to help them to go overseas. And the efforts that we have put in, if I look at it, I can summarize it into a few areas. One, I think very importantly, especially during this crisis, is how do we help SMEs to survive? And how do we reduce their business costs? How do we enhance their accessibility to credit and to ease their cash flow? I think these are very important aspects to help SMEs to be able to cope. Beyond this, we also have to look at how to help them to build, to be ready for the future. So building stronger capabilities, improving productivity, improving the skills of their workers. These are also very important aspects because when the crisis is over, we want to emerge stronger. We still have to compete. Global competition doesn't stop just because of COVID. If anything at all, I think it may become even more intense. And we need to prepare our companies, we need to prepare our workers so that they are ready. And for SMEs in particular, how do you help them to make good use of the new opportunities? How do you create new opportunities for them to demonstrate their capabilities, build up stronger track records so that they can take their track records to be able to get new contracts, to be able to access new markets? So for all this, I think we have different schemes, and I think we can have a further discussion later, and Zaqy and Edward will be able to add to it. But if I may end off my opening remarks, I think with an important message to our SME owners, to our workers, to all Singaporeans, it is this. Now, we are currently in a very difficult environment. Our economy is going to face a lot of headwinds because of COVID. And it is an uncertain time. And in such an environment, I hope Singaporeans can reflect and consider which is a party which has the track record of getting Singapore out of economic crisis. We have gone through, this is not the first crisis that we are encountering. It is perhaps the most serious crisis of this generation, but it is not the only crisis that Singapore has gone through. And the PAP government, for so many years, have had this track record of pulling Singapore out of a crisis and emerging stronger, being able to rally together our people to overcome difficulties. Second, I think it's important to look at which party has a concrete set of plans and ideas to take our country forward, to take our economy forward. How do you build infrastructure that will enhance competitiveness? How do you build capabilities of companies, of workers, skills future, to prepare our companies and our workers to be able to compete when the crisis is over? And which is the party that has built up the trust between employers, workers, this tripartite partnership, which is absolutely critical, especially in uncertain times, to allow us to be able to overcome the crisis and to be able to find new opportunities moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Hong Tat. I think there are a couple of themes that we definitely want to unpack today. I mean, one of the big ones would be, what is the government doing to help SMEs survive right now? And more importantly, what is the government doing to bring them forward so that they can ride this new digital economy and with new capabilities, because the economy that we see in the future is going to be a very different one. I'd like to direct the next question to Zaqy then. You know, what is the government doing in terms of helping businesses deal with the manpower shortage? Because we know a lot of the workers are still recuperating in some of these dormitories after being hit by COVID-19.
So before I respond to the question, let me take one step back. Over the last few months, we've certainly been hit by the pandemic, which is more than just a health situation, health pandemic. It's also gotten some impact on the economy. And if you compare this to past crises, whether it's Asian financial crisis or even SARS, the impact to our economy, and I think for many economies around the world, is very different. You have no travel, you're impacted by tourism, many events are closed, F&B retail are fully affected, even to today. So I understand the concerns of many of our SMEs, and one of the schemes that the government has put in place, and I don't think we get enough credit for that, is the job support scheme. I mean, for us, many look at some of the care and support scheme and the cash that people get, that helps them tide through the difficult periods, or the temporary relief scheme. But the job support scheme has helped us keep many of our SMEs afloat, but it's not retain many Singaporeans in their jobs. As Hong Tat mentioned, one of the things that we underestimate is that SMEs actually hire 2/3 of the working population here in Singapore. And I think that has helped us retain many of our local workers who have, would otherwise have been affected, because the last thing you want is for perfectly healthy companies who are affected by the pandemic to close shop. So this is one area in which I think many SMEs have come out and say, thankful that government has come in to support, I think, the cash flow aspect.
Yeah.
And of course, for others, like in the construction, process and marine sector, the foreign worker levy, because they have higher concentration of foreign workers there, has also helped them tide through this period. But I think what it has also shown with the situation is that our high dependence on foreign manpower has affected the operation and restart. So of course, in the construction sector, for example, in my role in M&D, I work together with Second Minister Desmond Lee to work with the construction sector to see how we can help manage the situation, put in place a package which was announced recently, $1.6 billion package, to help the construction sector restart and tide through this period, because they are one of the most affected ones. For other sectors, for example, like the aviation sector, for example, and some in tourism, I mean, they have a higher support of 75% in the job support scheme. And we've also extended the job support scheme to cover companies that have not been able to restart until August. So these are areas in which we try to support our companies, but at the same time protect jobs of Singaporeans. And I do hope that many of our SMEs have benefited from this as a result of providing them more cash flow to tide through this period. So over the long term, I would say you will see the whole economic structure change, because we are also moving towards a very different post-COVID environment.
Yeah.
And that would also mean some of the nature of jobs will also change, nature of companies will also change, nature of business will also change. As it is, more companies are also moving online. And the future of work is something MOM has been looking quite closely, working with the ITM's industry transformation maps, in which we are looking to help our industries transform and certainly bring along the SMEs into this.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the transformation bit, I really want to hear, I'm very keen to hear from Edward, from your interactions with the SME community,
Yes.
New entrepreneurs who might have just started out their business. I think many of them didn't expect to have to navigate through this COVID-19 landscape. What else are you hearing, and how can we better support them?
Well, I think I just want to highlight Zaky's point that the job support scheme was really a major lifeline to many SMEs. I think in the last few months, it feels quite a distant, because it's just so many things that have been happening, but it's actually just the last few months. For any crisis to any SME, it's no longer about profit and loss per se. It's actually cash flow, because cash flow is really like our blood. If the blood does not move, the body is dead. And I think the job support scheme provided cost relief, but it's also about the timely disbursement of the actual job support scheme. And I think DPM Heng Swee Keat made sure to bring forward some of these disbursements, and that has actually been very timely help for SMEs. So I thought to highlight the point, it's not just about the relief, but it's also about timely disbursements to ensure that SMEs receive the funds in good time so that we are able to safeguard our people's jobs. And I know many SME business owners, we feel that it's our responsibility to care for our colleagues.
Yeah.
We are the boss, and it is our moral responsibility to care for them. So this has really helped to safeguard many jobs. And we talk about rebounding. For SME business owner, it's very practical. I can't rebound, I can't reopen if we do not have my team in place. So again, with the job support scheme, helps us to retain the workers, but also prepares our companies to reopen, because it's like you're fighting a battle. You need to ensure that you have a battle with your team in place, everyone in place, everybody is stable and raring to go. So the job support scheme not only saves jobs, but also positions our SMEs to actually emerge when the economy reopens. So I thought that's something which I just thought to reflect as SME business owner. Second, I feel that for a lot of entrepreneurs, the contrarian view, as an entrepreneur, I'll share a contrarian view,
Okay.
is actually one of the best times to start a new business is during a crisis. I feel
Really
that,
a contrarian view.
I feel that we should never waste a crisis. In fact, some of my businesses that I started was actually during the last crisis, during the global financial crisis in 2009. And this was when things are cheaper. And the good news is that actually investment capital is still largely available. Today, if you have a good idea, I think investors are still willing to back you in capital. So I actually think for budding entrepreneurs, seek out the opportunities. In fact, COVID-19 has actually created new industries, new type of businesses. And I do know that some young budding entrepreneurs are actually seizing these opportunities. So I feel that as an entrepreneur, always seek out new opportunities, always try to find the positive in things. And the government has great schemes to back our entrepreneurs. So be positive. But COVID-19 has also accelerated. I think to me, COVID-19 has not just changed structurally, but actually accelerated some of the structural changes and highlighted some imbalances in certain business arrangements. So for example, tenancy agreements. In the last few months, I serve on the Restaurant Association of Singapore, and we have accelerated discussions about fair tenancy. I think the business community was very appreciative for the government to step in terms of negotiating for rent release, because for quite a while, the government has stepped in to support jobs, but another major cost factor is rent. Rental. And there was a lot of tussle back and forth, and eventually I think the government assisted in not just as a landlord provided 4 months, it set the tone for private landlords, but it also, I think the recent rent relief, there's a legislation to pass. So that gave certainty to SMEs that, okay, now in terms of one of our biggest fixed costs, we have certainty for at least during the COVID period. But now it's also accelerated discussions about fair tenancy legislation. I think SMS is involved in some of that. I was involved in the committee under the Association of Small and Medium Enterprise, SME, representing RAS. So I think we want to accelerate that because, and I want to emphasize the keyword, it's fair tenancy. The keyword is fair. Landlord-tenant relationship has to be a good partnership. It has to be a sustainable partnership. So addressing some of the structural imbalances actually helps landlords and tenants to forge a more sustainable, equitable partnership for the long term. So for us to re-emerge stronger, we probably have to reset some of these relationships so that this provides a stable, sustainable environment for SMEs to be able to grow and thrive.
Hong Tat, you'd like to add on to that,
Edward touched on a very important point because as he alluded to, the main cost item for a lot of SMEs will be manpower costs and also rental costs. So for rental, in addition to making sure that the landlord is fair and the landlord will pass through some of these rebates, property tax rebates, and also to provide rental relief for the SMEs that are affected by COVID-19. This discussion that we are having now through the Pro-Tem Committee that is set up under the Singapore Business Federation is really also to look ahead and say, beyond the crisis, how do we come up with a better and fairer arrangement that it's win-win for both the landlord and the tenant? Looking ahead, because at the end, the competition is not just between landlord and tenant. It's not a landlord versus tenant. It's actually the landlord and the tenant, the interests are aligned. versus competition from elsewhere, other cities, and also competition from online retailers. How do you come together and have a fairer arrangement that is mutually beneficial and sustainable for the longer term? So Mr. Michael Lim has agreed to chair this pro tem committee. He's neither a tenant nor a landlord, so I think he's an impartial, independent person, and he has many years of experience in PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I think he understands the issues. And I think with his leadership, I'm confident, and with the active involvement of the landlords and also the tenants, I'm confident that we can bring all the stakeholders together to work out a better, forward-looking, mutually beneficial, fair arrangement for everybody. Now, the other aspects, going back to your earlier point about how we help SMEs to survive this crisis, cash flow, credit, these are important areas. It's really the access to working capital. And we understand that, especially during a crisis, if you do nothing, banks would typically pull back because they are worried about risk and exposure. So what we did together with MAS, Enterprise Singapore, is we stepped in and we say, we are going to provide you with some risk sharing. So the government will basically co-fund a large part, 90% of the risk. And we will provide also low interest credit to the banks so that they can lend out to companies. So if you look at the working capital loan, the temporary bridging loan that is being offered, we have 10,000 companies that have borrowed up to $8.7 billion under the temporary bridging loan scheme. And 80% of these 10,000 companies, so in other words, about 8,000 of these, are micro and small enterprises. So this scheme has worked quite well in rolling out some of these credit to help ease the cash flow and credit access to credit for micro enterprises and for small enterprises, because they are the most vulnerable. And we do not want good companies, as Zaqy said, to go belly up during this period, because they are providers of jobs and they may grow in future into larger companies. We want to make sure the good ones can survive. And this is one way of helping them. Now, one other example I can share with you, Yvonne, is what we do at SkillsFuture Singapore. And this is something which we believe very strongly in, that don't waste a crisis. I think I would mention that there's always a silver lining, but also don't waste a crisis. This is a time to also help our employers and our workers to build deeper skills. And we decided that we will ramp up the training support for our SMEs. So previously, when SME owners send their workers for training, they can claim absentee payroll. So depending on the size of the company, it's $4.50 per hour or $7.50 per hour. So the first thing we did was we're going to raise this to $10 per hour, and it's going to stretch all the way till the end of the year. And it's for all sectors. So any company sending your workers for training, going for approved SkillsFuture courses, you can benefit from this enhanced training support scheme. And besides besides the absentee payroll, we also provide higher subsidies. Up to 90% of the course fees will be funded by government. So I'm really trying to encourage our SMEs, don't hold back on training, because this is something which is very crucial. If you want to emerge stronger later, you need your troops to be ready.
Yes. So just a highlight on that. The enhanced training support during the COVID-19 has really helped a lot of SMEs. First, it was to retain our workers. Second, actually before COVID-19, if you speak to some SMEs about training, some will say, I don't have time. I really don't have enough manpower. How do I send my manpower for training? But because of COVID-19 and the circuit breaker, then suddenly we realized that we actually had quite a lot of time, and our workers had time. So many SME business owners actually took advantage of the capitalized the scheme. And because of the higher subsidy of course fees, when we send some of our staff for training, the company actually goes into a cash flow positive situation because the cost fees is actually lower than the amount received in absentee payroll. So it actually helps to mitigate costs for companies. At the same time, benefits our workers because they are going for upskilling. So in the short term, it addresses cash flow concerns, helps with cash flow. In the medium and long term, positions companies and workers to be more well-trained and ready for the next battle, in that sense. So it has been extremely helpful for many SMEs.
From manpower perspective, I truly support this, honestly. I mean, I understand, some of the SMEs or companies today are in our called survival mode.
Many of them are.
So I understand this, but if you think about survival, you're always better off if your troops are better trained. So your probability of survival is much better. So I would say that during this time, downtime, please do consider taking up training support schemes, because I think that's one of the most underestimated aspect of our schemes.
Yeah. And importantly, I guess it's really Singaporeans who benefit.
Yes.
Because these schemes are actually only available to our Singaporean workers.
That's right. That's
So it is about supporting our Singaporeans through this difficult time by upskilling and preparing our workforce, our local workforce, for the next upturn.
And you heard it right here. SMEs, if you have not sent your employees for training, do so right now. You heard it here
advantage
from,
of this.
yes,
Yes.
from Zaqy, from Hong Tat, and from Edward. We can't reiterate this point more. We've talked about, say, rental reliefs, JSS support scheme, training schemes, but we also want to make sure that we have a very robust pro-enterprise environment, right? But sometimes some of these SMEs may be really constrained with regulations. Are we ready to transform some of these regulations? What's being done on this front?
Yeah, maybe let me start, Yvonne,
Yes.
because this is something that's very close to my heart. I have been working on this pro-enterprise panel work for some time in MTI, and it is a process by which we collate feedback from businesses, from trade associations, and then we look at the feedback, and if it's a sensible proposal that can help ease business costs, support new business ideas, we will then follow up with the respective government agencies to discuss with them to see, can we review our rules? And this process may sound like a lot of nuts and bolts kind of work, because you are going down to very operational details. Sometimes you have to scroll through the rules and see what are the necessary changes. But it can be very helpful. I will give you a few examples to illustrate. You may have heard of this group of young men who brewed beer in their dormitory in NTU. Rahul, Abhilash, and Hitesh. So the three of them, they stayed in Binjai Hall, and they started to brew beer, and so that's why they call their beer Binjai Brew. And then they got found out by NTU, and NTU said, sorry, you don't have a license, so therefore you can't do this. And when I read about this, I asked my colleagues to arrange for me to meet them. So we had dinner together, and over dinner, they shared with me their ideas. I think they feel very passionate about they're engineers. So they were applying their engineering skills to see, how to control the settings, the temperature, to brew different types of beer. I mean, as an engineer myself, I can really appreciate the thought process.
Yes.
And so at the end of the discussion, I encouraged them. I said, don't give up. You should really try, and this is a setback, of course, but don't give up. Why not you work with somebody, or you try and form your own company? And I'm glad they did, because they worked with a contract brewer, and the arrangement allowed them to continue to sell their beer, but in partnership with this microbrewery. And today, I think they are doing well. They're selling it, craft beer.
Is it still
It's
called
popular.
Binjai Brew?
Binjai Brew.
Still Binjai
Yes,
Brew.
Binjai Brew. They retained the name.
Okay.
Yeah, and during that dinner, they gave me a very good feedback. They said, they wanted to apply for a license, but a license is so expensive.
Yes.
And they are not sure whether they will be able to succeed, right? So when you apply the license, it's 1 whole year. What if you fail after 2 months? I still have to pay for the whole year. So they said, can you allow us to pay prorated for shorter licenses?
Yeah.
So it sounds like a very simple idea, but it has not been done before. So we went back, we discussed, in this case with Singapore Customs, and Customs, to their credit, was very open-minded about this. They said, yeah, actually, why not? Because we also want to support startups and entrepreneurship. And if we can help, let's do so. So Customs came back and said they agree, let's offer prorated, and you can apply for, say, a quarterly license instead of an annual license, and pay 1/4 of the price. And better still, Customs said, well, if you don't succeed and you give up after, say, a month, the remaining 2 months of your quarterly license, I'll refund you.
That's great.
So really
It's
pro-business.
much more viable,
right?
yeah.
So this will help to lower the entry costs for small businesses to get started. It also lowers the cost of failure, because if you were to fail, the exit cost is also lower. So I think regulations can play a role, both to lower the cost, but also to support new business ideas.
It'd be great if we can see more of such examples
Yes,
coming
yeah.
up, because you see more entrepreneurs who'll be willing to take risks.
Yes, so for government agencies, I think I'm really grateful to Customs and many other agencies that work with us. It is about adopting a pro-business mindset. When you get a proposal, don't straight away say cannot. Ask yourself, why not? Is it possible for me to support it? So don't see yourself as a goalkeeper. We're trying to block every goal, every ball from getting into the goal. That's not the role that we should play. We should be a gatekeeper, where sometimes we do let things through if it makes sense. If the idea doesn't work or if there are some risk, yet yes, we will have to gatekeep, we will have to block it. But our role as regulatory agencies is really not to block every idea. It's to support good ideas, but to reject the risky ones that could cause some harm to the public, cause some risk to the public, but to allow the good ideas so that we can have new innovation, so that we can have new ideas, new business models.
Before I move on to talk about new opportunities for SMEs as well and what we're doing to help them, just a very quick question that I've been hearing from the ground, and that is, would the government consider extending rental relief, further rental reliefs and JSS if the economic situation does not improve? Will they consider extending this to SMEs?
Yeah, I think the government has indicated that if it's necessary to provide further support for our companies and for our workers, we will do so. We will do so. And that is why I think we must be careful in how we spend the money. It is not just spending how much you spend, it's not just about spending more and more, but it is how you spend it. You've got to make sure that it is effective. So that's why some of the schemes that we have is designed so that the intervention will actually reach the beneficiary. In the case of job support scheme, for example, is to help companies to save jobs for Singaporeans.
Which you say was time.
That's right.
Yes.
For rental relief as well, it's very targeted. It is to make sure that the tenants benefit. Right? So it is not just about how much you spend, it's how you spend it. But because we were prudent, we were careful in terms of how we spend the money, we still have some ammunition left. That if necessary, we are prepared to step in to give further assistance. But we have to think through in what way the assistance is provided, because there is this dual objective that we're trying to achieve, trying to help companies to survive, but also to help companies to build and to be ready for the future. So you do want to spend some of your resources on the survival, what some of the examples we have shared, but at the same time, don't forget that there's also a need to invest in building for the future to emerge stronger. Both are important.
So here, just to add on, many of our agencies are working very closely with the industry, associations, whether companies, and some of us meet, for example, construction, we meet every week to listen out and hear from the sector. I think it's important because you look at construction, for example, we've also put in place additional package just for construction because of the safety measures, safe COVID measures, workplace measures, worksite measures. We know that they are fully affected by some of these compliance, and therefore it was important for us to put out a separate package because we know that many of these contracts were locked in for many years, and therefore you need sufficient time for companies to adapt because they are all affected by current contract rules, agreements, but they are subjected to higher compliance costs as a result of safety measures and workplace measures. So these are important aspects in which the government has shown that we can react quickly, put in packages quickly, timely, to make sure that companies are not affected by cash flow. But of course, there's a limited time frame for this so that as the contracts renew or they are into new contracts, you don't burden the government too much. But it's important that we give them support in the meantime because recognizing the nature of the different sectors.
Minister K. Shanmugam has said before that these rental reliefs, JSS support schemes, they are not a silver bullet, right, to help SMEs survive. And only a truly fit and viable business will be able to surpass or get over the COVID hump and truly thrive. What, in your opinion, makes up the traits of a fit and viable business? Who would like to go first?
Maybe Edward.
Edward?
Yeah. Personal experience.
Fit and viable.
I think, for me, it's a business that firstly focuses on the customer. Because for a business, revenue is more important. We have been talking a lot about costs, mitigating costs, because that is real and it's urgent because we are going through a crisis. But in the medium to long term, every business needs to focus on revenue and also looking at what is the next leapfrog opportunity to grow revenues. You can't grow revenues without understanding our customer needs. And one thing to probably pay attention to is what has COVID-19 do to change our consumers' behavior, our customers' behavior. So that's the first step, understanding our customers, then repositioning our services or products to match our customers' future needs. Right, so that's where I think changing our business model comes in. But always pay in very close attention and have the pulse, understand customers well. So I would say that would be the first thing to do. Second, I feel that the opportunity again is a lot of SMEs are sitting on a lot of data, but we have not been actually harnessing those data. If you look at the previous industrial revolution, if you point out to one single commodity that has spurred, I would say it's oil. Because without oil, there were no automobiles, there would be no ships, there would be no factories. Yep. But in today's fourth industrial revolution, again, if you want to bring it down to a single commodity, I would say it's data. It's a horizontal resource that impacts all verticals industries, manufacturing to construction to even simple things like lift maintenance. You can do predictive analysis of maintenance. And our SMEs actually has been sitting on a lot of data, but they are not mining it, we are not harnessing it, we are not making sense of it.
Maybe some of them don't know how to.
Correct, exactly. It could also be a skills gap issue, because we want to harness data. We are sitting on the data, but our people do not have the skills. In fact, most of us are still using a 25, probably 30-year-old software to analyze data called Microsoft Excel. Right? It is outdated. It doesn't have the capability.
I still use Microsoft Excel.
And me too. Right? I'm also doing that. So a lot of us actually now need to make that quantum leap. So I always share, my wife she shops online, and she sometimes tells me, all I need is to just go on Facebook, search one thing, and the next thing, the algorithm works, and it's now starting to recommend. And it's sometimes creepy.
Fantastic. It is creepy.
Sometimes I find it creepy myself.
You're being watched, choices are being logged.
Exactly. But essentially, that's actually data. So the big tech companies have been harnessing data for a long time, and that's why there's such a huge gap between the online retailers and the brick and mortar retailers. We kind of need to close up the gap. We kind of need to say, okay, how can we upskill? There are available schemes to upskill our people. Now it's about, okay, helping companies to say what are the skill sets you need and what are the business models you need, and then matching it. So first, be very in tune with customers' needs, your individual company's customers. Then say, okay, now how do I match my new business model to meet our customers' needs, and what are the ingredients required? So the potential dovetailing point is, how do we match skills upgrading to new business model so that both employers and employees are singing the same song and working in tandem to serve their future customers? I think that's where we need to pay emphasis on.
We have schemes for that, right? To better match what employees need with what the firm needs for the future?
Yes, I think what Edward has described, I think I fully agree with him, because you have to start with the customer and look at how do you transform your company, how do you transform your products and services to meet the needs of the customer. And some people tell us that mine is a traditional business, so therefore all these are not for me. Data, new business model, innovation, these are for all the new startups. But actually it's not true. If you look at many of the successful companies, some of them are new startups, of course, but some of them are also traditional companies that have been transformed. They pivoted away from their old business model.
Yeah, that's such a key word, pivoting.
Right? And they then use innovation, they use technology, they upgraded skills with their workers, and through this transformation process, they were better able to meet the needs of their customers. I'll give you an example. We have this rock sugar company called Cheng Yu Heng. It's an old traditional company selling rock sugar, and it's been around for, I think, 60, 70 years. So the team of people running it today, I think they're the third generation, the grandchildren of the founder. And rock sugar, if you just sell it in its most traditional form, it is a commodity, right? And if you sell a commodity, you're going to compete with suppliers from Malaysia, from Vietnam, from Thailand, and they have a lower cost base because land is cheaper, labor is cheaper. So if you go head-on competition with some of these overseas suppliers, I don't think we are going to be in an advantageous position. But if you can transform rock sugar into a novelty product that is no longer just a commodity, then you are no longer competing on price. So that's exactly what Cheng Yu Heng did. Together with support from Enterprise Singapore, they worked with our universities, polytechnics and ITE to do research into how do you create different types of rock sugar products infused with local flavors, like lemongrass. And,
Pandan.
Exactly. So it becomes a novelty product that you can then enjoy, either as a lollipop, or you put it on a stick, or you can stir it in your tea, and then it enhances the flavor.
Rock sugar and barley, yes.
Right? So all that then allows the company to offer something that can meet the needs of a new group of customers. It's no longer a commodity, and because of that, they had strong revenue growth, 3 digits.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it shows the importance of being able to have breakthroughs and innovation and not be confined by limitations of mindset that, I'm an old traditional sector, I don't have to transform. It's not true. Every sector, every company can benefit, and we have schemes to help them.
Do you see that happening in the construction side too, where some companies would say, I am a very labor intensive, maybe as I move forward, I need to rely more on AI and automation? Zaqy?
No, but to be honest, to be credit the sector as well. So it's been tough in the last many years, but recently I think we are about almost 40% of our major construction being done under DFME. So it's really a more productive means, prefabrication, and so forth. So we are moving towards more manpower lean type construction sector. And you find that many of our developers and builders are already adopting digital modeling. So that also saves them time in terms of project management, in terms of discussing, because all of you are on the same page. When you do digital modeling, you understand all the whole plans, how the progress of construction is going on, and the same plans can be shared in real time to everyone. So they're already moving towards that, and about 40%, we're about 40% there, and we're going to increase that further in the next few years to about 60-70% target. So we have a target in mind. But I think beyond construction, you also see this in cleaning industry, simple things like cleaning industry, security sector. Yes. So you always think that the security guard is with the jaga who walks around. This is very different. They've all transformed using CCTVs, sensors, and using data. The cleaning sector has also changed. And that's why we have been able to pay our cleaners better. Because you've seen some of them use data these days. So in the old days, what do they do? They go down, wash the toilets and tick every hour.
You still see that in some
places, yes. But some have moved on. They have started to analyze data. They know I don't have to come all the time. I know when the peak periods are. Yes. Some put in sensors to detect when the toilets are dirtier. Yes. And then they move the workers around. So some, instead of cleaning toilets, you can clean other parts. So you're more lean, more productive in cleaning. So therefore, productivity increases, workers get paid better. Security is a very good example. Yeah. So you've seen it change, and not just change, but you look at the worker profile changing too. So if you look at some of our top security award winners in the last few years, I was at one event and realized that more than half are quite young. So you've got younger folks going into younger, well-trained workers moving into security because you are now using more technology, using more CCTV surveillance, drones. And many of them have also got career paths that go beyond just becoming a security supervisor. Min Josephine also mentioned that you're now encouraging some of them to become security consultants because some of them are already doing hard security, for hard security management for our installations. So they're very good with terrorism and other scenarios in which your expertise can actually go abroad too.
Yes.
So this is where SMEs from traditional sectors too, who said, "Oh, very difficult. I'm a jaga. I just walk around." Now you move to a different scenario, different scene, and you look at the potential. If you can do more security consultancy as well internationally because of the kind of jobs that we do in Singapore. So I think there's that potential if you really look and think about how you can move ahead and create a brand for yourself here. So one thing I agree with Edward fully is that a lot of times when we talk about SMEs, a lot of the discussions are really around costs. But really beyond customer as well, you've got to think about the markets too that you can expand to. Yes. And I think that's where you've got to broaden the conversation, cost, customer, market. And I think that's where it will make a difference in terms of how our SMEs view themselves and how they view opportunities around them.
Yeah, absolutely. You preempted my next question. I wanted to talk about connectivity, because I'm sure SMEs just don't just want to grow in Singapore. They want to better leverage our connectivity, right? So what are we doing on this front to deepen and diversify our linkages with overseas markets so that SMEs have more opportunities overseas?
Maybe let me start, Yvonne. If you look at where Singapore is, in a way we are fortunate that we are in Asia. And I say that because Asia is going to be the region where there will still be a lot of growth opportunities in the next few decades. Rising middle class, growing economies, and all this will provide new sources of opportunities and growth for our companies. But we need to be ready to tap these opportunities. We need to understand what the customers in these various markets require. How do we prepare ourselves? How do we leverage on our links with them. All these are, I think, efforts that we need to invest in to help our companies, to help our workers. So earlier, I think Edward and Zaqy spoke about different ways in which we can help our companies, help our workers. And that's actually a very fundamental belief of this government, that when we look at providing an environment that is pro-enterprise, it must also be pro-worker. When we look at helping companies to transform, that must go hand in hand with skills upgrading for our workers. Because at the end of the day, we need the support of the different parts of the ecosystem, all the different stakeholders, not just employers, but also workers, so that we can move the whole system along. And that, I think, is the strength of our system. That's what gives the stability and the sustainability and the confidence to investors. That's why when you go overseas and you tell people that I'm a Singapore company, there's a certain premium. Trust premium, quality premium, and also this confidence that, okay, Singapore company, Singaporean, you mean what you say what you mean. And I can don't play, yes, and I can expect you to deliver what you promise, And I think that Singapore brand name helps us when we go overseas to compete. We are not the cheapest location. We don't have the largest domestic market. We do have some limitations, but we need to play this competition. We need to play to our strengths so that we can compete better. And the trust factor, our connectivity, I think what we need to deepen are perhaps a couple of areas. One is, even though we are in Asia, many of us may not have as deep knowledge of our neighborhood as what we should be working towards. I think that's something that is an area for improvement. We are trying to ramp up in MOE, starting from young, exposing our students. We're trying to encourage our tertiary students to go for internship, to go for, of course now with COVID, that was a little bit setback, but when COVID is over, I think we should press on with these efforts. How do you strengthen the linkages with the region? Make full use of the fact that we are in the center of Asia. We are a node and a key hub in Asia. Fully make use of this. And I think the other thing that we should do, and we should give it a push, is how do we create opportunities for our SMEs to demonstrate their capabilities. When I first came to MTI about 2 years ago, my first speech in Parliament was about SMEs. And I wanted to talk about how do we help grow our SMEs, why SMEs are important, why is it crucial to grow local champions. And one of the ideas that I push for is how do we use government procurement as a platform to provide opportunities for SMEs. And through the Pro Enterprise panel, we have done a few things. One of them is how do you allow SMEs to participate in GBIZ by lowering the cost of entry for them. So in the past, you have to submit audited financial statements as a small company. But under the Companies Act, if you are below 5 million in annual turnover, you don't have to. So this is an additional cost that to participate in GBIZ, they have to go get an auditor to submit audited financial statements. So we removed this together with MOF. So with the removal of this requirement for SMEs, now more of them can participate. Right? So that's one way. The second thing that we did was, together with BCA, in the past, you want to participate in certain projects, they will look at the size of your company. And if you want to participate in certain tiers of projects, you need to have certain sizes of your annual turnover, your asset, your balance sheet. And instead of that, we thought maybe we should encourage SMEs who individually may not meet the criteria, but collectively they might, to come together. So now what we do is we look at not just your individual, but we look at collectively. If the combined team of SMEs can actually meet the criteria collectively, not individually, we allow you to participate. And I think this is win-win because for the government agency, we now have more suppliers we can choose from. We can choose the best supplier. And for the SMEs, this is a wonderful opportunity to prove your capability, build a strong track record, and then to go overseas.
I feel like you're a real champion for SMEs.
No, it's true. Because recently I also shared in Parliament that among our construction firms, more of our local firms have been getting larger projects these days as a result. So it's really true that we are giving opportunities as well. So it's not just the big construction firms that can take on large projects.
We have to believe in our SMEs and allow the good ones, those with strong capabilities, to be able to demonstrate and then to build a track record.
Edward, I hear you going, like, you know, agreeing with what he's saying emphatically.
Yes,
too.
yes, and I think one thing that I completely agree with SMS is that in terms of the opportunities in the region, one thing that we could do much better or more is actually the soft skills. I mean, we talk about skills, upskilling. Most of the time, it's actually hard technical skills, and those are important. But in terms of the region, our soft skills in terms of cultural understanding, language, I think those are important areas to build on. In business, sometimes we say it's not about how much you know, but who you know.
Who you know, yeah.
And I think network is important. And you can't get to know someone better if you don't understand one's culture. Sometimes over a business dinner, you can't just talk about business all the time. You're going to be one of the most boring business dates, right? You kind of need to have a softer way of having conversations. And sometimes that requires understanding people skills
yeah.
and understanding each another's culture with respect. I think as we do business in the region, we need to respect our neighbors, respect their culture, and have a better understanding, and develop deeper bonds and friendship. And friendship goes a long way in business, especially in the region. So I hope that we can create more opportunities for our youths, because they are our future. They are our future SME business owners, future entrepreneurs. We do need to help them as they grow in their educational journey, develop such soft skills, understand our region. Our region actually now provides one of the best opportunities. Economies like Indonesia and Vietnam have very young population, so it bodes very well for them. And we need to connect our youths to these two economies so that they develop deeper friendship. So when they go to Jakarta, let's say to start a business they can just call their friends. They don't just need to look for or Google certain companies. These are friends that they've grown up with and they could get help with.
And there's a lot more direct way to establish business partnerships.
Yes, and in business, sometimes it's really just that. It's really about, hey, I have something, can you kind of help me? We have coffee, we could go for drinks after dinner, and that's where things happen.
So it doesn't have to be such a formalized plan where you go through agency after
Most of the time, actually, business is not a formal affair. It's actually a very casual affair. And
Government policy making should be the same.
Exactly.
I got the idea to change the rule from the three young men from NTU.
Exactly.
Over dinner and beer.
So new business opportunities being brewed over dinner and beer. Fantastic. So gentlemen, we've talked a lot about how the government is helping businesses survive. We've talked about investing in hardware and software. And I picked up a lot of good points about how SMEs need to know their customers, better match demands to needs, and leveraging more on our connectivity and our data. But how about, if we could close this now, I want to talk about this new initiative called the Enterprise Leadership for Transformation Program, right? That aims to support leaders of promising SMEs. What is the criteria for a leader that will truly lead an SME into the future?
Maybe I ask Edward to share, since he's run a successful SME.
Well, I don't know much about the program, but I can say, I think SME business owner, firstly, really understands customers. But I think the next group of stakeholders or group of people that we do need to value deeply is actually our people. I think for most SMEs, our greatest resource is our people. And we do need to care for them, and we do need to understand that and I say this with all honesty, as an entrepreneur, it is not a one-man show. It is very much a team play. And we do need to invest in our people, grow with them. I often share with my colleagues that we grow our business because we want to grow your careers as well. And as we grow, you grow. And it's equitable, and they feel that growth. So I think, to me, the two basic ingredients for SME business owner is to first really intimately understand our customers. Secondly, also intimately care for our people, grow with our people, and grow as a team.
Understand your customer and understand your people and care for them.
Yes, I fully agree with Edward. I think those are very important qualities. And we are looking for business leaders who have ideas, who have the passion and commitment, and also who have that belief that they can create a better future. Because I think that's what entrepreneurship is about. You are trying to change the world.
You're trying to solve problems.
Yes, you're trying to come up with something new, something different, a better product, a better service.
Yeah, you see a gap and you want to plug
That's
it,
right. And by doing so, you make the world a better place. You create new jobs. You create better jobs. You make your customers happier because you solve their problems. I think that's why entrepreneurship is such an important element of a dynamic economy. It's something we want to encourage more young people to give it a shot. And don't be afraid of failure, because you've got to, of course, create an environment where if they fail, there's a safety net for them to bounce back, and then they can try again. Don't give up. Many entrepreneurs don't succeed at the first instance. Many of them fail, they try again, they fail again, they try again, and eventually they succeed. Eventually they succeed. And so I think that spirit of never say die, and being willing to always look for that new opportunity. We have to make Singapore such an economy. Then I think it will be vibrant, there will be growth opportunities, and there will be good jobs for our people.
Yeah. Thank you, Hong Tat. Zaqy, some closing remarks from you.
If I can sell some koyo. No, because we're talking about skills and jobs and companies who are expanding. No, really, one of the things that we're doing under the National Jobs Council is really the SG United Jobs and Skills program. And I know some of our SMEs are still expanding, looking to hire. Some are also thinking that this is a temporary situation in which there could be some light at the end of the tunnel sometime maybe late next year. So we do offer both career jobs programs in which there are incentives for employers to hire some of our older workers, mature workers, for example, and even fresh graduates. So while you may not have permanent positions, we have that scheme too. We also have traineeship schemes. So in which, as Edward said, some of them, they want to try out new capabilities, you want to hire fresh graduates, give them a chance in an SME, or some of the mature workers who you want to give them traineeship opportunities, because you may not have headcount today. In the next few months, government gives support in terms of wage support, allowances. These are ways in which SMEs can also gather our local talent pool and find available talent today who could help you expand your business. And when times are better, make them full-time employees, because you use this time to train them. So this is one way, and the other one is really tap on all our traineeship, skills development type programs too, because I think employees will appreciate it. I think loyalty, you're building loyalty too in terms of in tough times. I do not let you go. I'm training you. I'm putting in things in which employees do get training allowance. So this is where I think it's a win-win for both the employer and the employee. At the same time, it helps the business. When as business recovers, to be able to address new opportunities and have better skill sets and better trained workers too.
Yeah.
It's an investment in our people, and it's an investment in our future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zaqy.
Thank you.
Hong Tat, as
Thank you,
well as
Yvonne.
Edward. You've shared so many good points today, as well as measures that are available. I hope that our SMEs who are listening in, as well as budding entrepreneurs, take comfort in knowing that there's some skill sets that we can invest in, and there are opportunities out there that's still waiting for these SMEs to tap on. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And of course, I'd like to thank our online audience for keeping us company this Monday afternoon. My name is Yvonne Chan. You've been watching Straight Talk with PAP.